Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Shop Stool Podcast for Season 6, Episode 8. We are just two of us today. Unfortunately, Bryan couldn't make it because he is at an exhibition, I want to say.
Something like that. But luckily, we have some... our third guest today is background noise.
Yeah. So Joey's fighting the rain and I've got impact drivers in the background. My neighbor's putting on solar panels. So we're going to record this episode. Hopefully it doesn't sound too bad. But if it is a bit annoying, we do apologize. We'll do our best to talk as loud as we can over it.
Yeah. Yeah. The old tin roof is just a bit noisy today, but that's what you get.
Yeah. We've just... I've got a few things that I wanted to talk to you, Joey, more just around the business side of things. But you mentioned you were just talking to an insurance guy.
I'm late to start the podcast, but because this... I think I mentioned a few podcasts ago that insurance on woodworking businesses here, at least in New Zealand, they're really cracking down on fire safety because they're just shit scared of self-combusting woodwork shops. And so it seems now that I am required to do an annual fire electrical safety thingamabob.
Wow.
Last time, I had to pay for an insurance. I had to pay for a thermal imaging test of my switchboard, and I guess that's all they really wanted to know, even though it's less than a year old at the time. And
what's that looking for? Just to see if anything's arcing.
See if it's running too hot, and then potentially.
Oh, okay, yeah, just overheating, yeah.
Yeah,
hopefully it's not arcing. You've got bigger problems with your fuse box arcing.
Your fuse box is arcing in a tin shed and the whole place is just buzzing. So I had to pay $1,000 last year for that, and they want to do this annually. And so now the insurance company is doing a free service where they come out and give you these things for free, which seems counterintuitive, but okay. So he just came and had a look. He wanted me to run all my machines so he could see everything under load with a thermal image. Seemed to be fine. But it seems that there is a process which wasn't followed where they're meant to send a risk assessment person out to the business first, and they're going to highlight all the bad stuff you're doing. And then the thermal guy who was just here is meant to come and specifically look at the items A, B, C, D that were highlighted by the risk assessment guy. So I never got the risk assessment. I just got the thermal guy, and he was a bit pissed off that no one else had been here. He didn't know anything about the job, and blah, blah, blah. Woe was me. But he said to me, "You've got extension leads on the floor. That's a problem."
Wow.
And I was
tight ship.
I was like, yeah, I've got extension leads. What do you want me to do about it?
Yeah, because I mean that's I would appreciate in a commercial environment maybe the restrictions are a bit tighter because you've got people back and forth. But I mean, isn't that just like the primary purpose of it, an extension lead?
So why do you think he had a problem with an extension lead?
Trip hazard.
No.
Water.
I am likely to drop something and cut the cable.
Oh, yes, because of all those sharp-edged pieces of titanium that we carry around.
That's right.
That can sever
I typically carry giant chisels, and I often drop them.
Yeah, when you do your axe throwing, there's a chance that it might land. Yep.
The very difficult thing about this kind of insurance assessment is before they come, I got an email, a 2-page fine print, which I actually read from the insurance company, to say anything, in summary, anything the the assessor says is not the position of the insurance company. Any advice they give you is not the position of the insurance company. They can't say anything. Essentially, they can't say anything to you and it mean anything. It's not up to the individual to talk about specifics. But they're allowed to highlight all the bad stuff you're doing. They're not allowed to offer solutions. So I said to him, so I've got an extension lead. I need to work not where the plug is on the wall, but a couple of meters away from that. So I need to drag my sander over. And he said, well, you need to have a protection on your extension lead. And I said, what, like a steel pipe? And he said, yes. And I said, but a steel pipe is not flexible. And he said, oh, well, that's not my problem. That's you'll have to talk to your electrician to come up with a solution.
And it's a massive trip hazard now as well, because now you've put a lip through your... But,
I said to him, I said, okay, what if I hang my extension lead off strings from the ceiling so it's just at like knee height, and then I wouldn't be able to like drop anything on it? And he was like, well, that's... And I said to him, yeah, I'll fix the problem. And I just unplugged it. I said, there you go, it's fixed. It's not a hazard anymore.
Yeah.
And he didn't like that. And I said, okay, let's forget about the extension lead. What about my sander? It's got a 3-meter power cord on it.
Yeah.
I don't need an extension lead. I just plug in the tool. Do I have to protect the tool lead with something that's unbreakable? What if I'm using a circular saw that has a 1 or 2 meter lead on it? I can just plug straight into the wall and that's not considered a hazard? Like, I was just getting I was trying to work out where is the line of what do you actually want? And he wouldn't offer any solution, didn't want to know about it.
Yeah, the whole that's not my problem response to something as nitpicky as that just says, yeah, not interested in solving a problem at all.
Yeah, I said, this is an absolute cop-out. I don't blame you. You're not allowed to talk to me like you want. I can see, and he kept saying, I can't talk about that. You've picked out something that you've been told to pick out on, and it's ludicrous. I said, because he said one solution, he actually said one solution would be more PowerPoints. And that's when I said, but I've still got a lead on my tool.
Doesn't work that way.
Plug something in.
Yeah. PowerPoints on the floor would be the only, or hanging PowerPoints, I guess.
Hanging PowerPoints.
I see what you're saying.
You still have
still a cable coming out of it, yeah.
And I said, what do builders do? I used to be a builder, and we had extension leads running every fucking where all over the building site. And at that, there's usually only one power supply into a building site. And you've got 6 trades working off 2 15-amp plugs. And everyone's on multi-box and running leads all through the house. I said, what solution is there for that? And he didn't want to even go down that path. But an absolutely ludicrous system to the point where we will probably cancel insurance because they're going to send this other assessor out now, this risk assessor, to tell me all the other things I'm doing wrong, like extension leads and dust on the floor and whatever else.
Now, you talk about possibly cancelling that. What's the cost like? Is it financially worth cancelling it?
Well, fire premiums, the premium, sorry, not the premium, the, what do you call it, excess. The excess used to be $2,000. So if there's a fire, I would pay the first $2,000 of the repairs, right? That's $25,000 for me now.
Shit. Same coverage.
Same coverage. Premium has gone up. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'd have to go through our books. Expensive though. It's not cheap because they class it as a commercial business. And so you say to yourself, okay, I've got a tin shed. If a corner of my shed burnt and I had to replace 6 or 7 bits of roofing, that's way less than 25,000. So I'm just covering all of that myself. If the whole shed burns down, I've got to find 200,000. But so it's like it's tough. And at this stage, I'm on the verge of saying, stuff you insurance companies, I don't think it's worth it anymore. I've got a brand new building. I can't see that it's just going to explode. Yeah,
and the chances of that happening, of the whole thing going up in flames, touch wood, is so astronomically low. Yeah.
And this is... Yeah. And I just felt condescended to as well, because the guy was nice, but he said to me, look, essentially, he told me the story of an old carpenter and a young apprentice, and whatever, the old carpenter got injured and got fired, and the moral of the story is do as I say, not what I do. And I was like, what? You're telling me just to like suck it up and do it just because I said? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this happened like 5 minutes ago, so I'm done. Man.
I've done nothing like that. My insurance it's a particular type of policy where you can do your house and contents and your business in the same one. Now, is that something similar to what you're doing, or is yours strictly just a business for the business?
It possibly is different because you've got, and like most people, presumably in this kind of setup, it's some kind of garage that you're working out of, which is part of the building or the building complex. Like even if you have a freestanding garage, typically home and contents insurance covers your outbuilding, like one major outbuilding, like a garage or something.
Yeah, right.
As long as it's lockable. I've got a completely separate workshop that is built and bought by my business, paid for by the business, and it's all very separate from my personal expenses.
Yeah, okay.
And which is great for tax, but not so great for things like this, it seems.
Because it makes sense. I can understand why they would want to do that. But yeah, why is this the first time that I'm hearing of this? I mean, Brian's never talked about this in the past. When I signed up for my insurance, none of this even came into the equation.
No, I think, and this guy just told me that there's been a lot of businesses catching fire in the woodworking business. And it's like, it does seem anecdotal that has been happening. I don't know any cases of it. I don't know any specifics. So it's really annoying that I can't, or maybe I should look into it. Like, why are buildings catching fire? Is it electrical problems? Is that just indicative of furniture, woodworking businesses leasing older buildings that are cheaper and more affordable, and you've got this old power supplies to deal with? My old workshop had big old fuses, like old-fashioned fuses that you had to like jam in and put a nail across the points, like. And that is what's going to cause a fire, not something that's brand new and up to code and everything else. So
yeah,
I think it's a new push by insurance companies to increase their fees to push people out of insuring businesses and homes and things like that are too expensive. Like over here, there's been all these big landslides and slips, and all these houses are left hanging off cliff faces, and so now all the insurance premiums for everyone on the street is gone like quadruple because they're like, well, this whole hillside could drop away and we don't want to pay for all of that. So if we boost the levy, people will just cancel their insurance. I think that's what they're trying to do. It seems like it.
Yeah, and your smaller mom and pop business who has been around for 1 million years, who will likely catch on fire, they will be the ones who are going to pull out and say, no, this is too expensive for me. Yeah. Whereas you've got a modern, functioning, operating business, you might be able to cover those costs.
Yeah, it's a strange one. Anyway, it just rubbed me up the wrong way a bit, the whole process. It rubbed me up the wrong way from the beginning where they sent me 2 pages of fine print. It's like, you're just sending out somebody to make an inspection. Why do I need fine print for that? And essentially, there was just lots of caveats to the whole situation, and I didn't appreciate it. They seemed very slippery.
Yeah, you need to get a legal team now as well to go through all of that.
Yeah. What does that mean exactly?
You're supposed to be on my team, insurance company, helping me out, not trying to catch me out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so interesting, but
yeah. No one wants to talk about insurance.
No.
The last time I looked into mine was it's about 18 months ago, and off the record, even though it's not, I swear the young consultant that I got didn't quite know what was going on, because I got the most amazing deal on my insurance. It was cheaper to insure my home content and business than to just get my home and contents through a residential style insurance. So I don't know if he just pushed the wrong buttons or whatever it was. Anyway, a year later, it went up by almost 50%, the premiums. So I kind of went, oh, that's fair now. Now it's starting to fall in line a bit more.
Did they ask you what your business was?
Yeah, and I was talking to someone else on Instagram about this. They were asking about Australian insurance. As soon as you use the dirty M word, manufacturing, it just goes straight up. Manufacturing,
say like crafted or handmade or something, maybe.
Yeah. If you say manufacturing, and the other one as well is if you primarily do kids furniture.
Really?
Yeah, so that was one that he said to me. That was a specific. No, it was a specific question. Do you do kids furniture? And I said, maybe occasionally. He said, well, is it your main business? I.e., if it is, it's going back. It's going up again. So
that's weird.
Yeah, but it was more questions around storage. So how I store my, and then there was how I store the lumber. Ceiling heights, and then storing chemicals. Those were the main homework items for me. So do you store your stuff do you store your fluids in a metal case? No, but I will from now on, kind of thing. Because I think that's
said to my insurance company, which is true, I don't have any flammable stuff. I don't. Yes, I've got finishes, but it's all water based. I don't have anything that's like lacquer. It's not like I'm spraying, explosives. It's just water vapor. So they quite like that, actually, I think. But the rules are so silly. Like one of the things from the fire point of view for me was that any wood like rubbish waste had to be in a steel. I think it was a steel bin. Rubbish drum, at least 5 meters away from the building or something.
Oh, right.
And that straight away you go, how many people have got space for that? Or is that even practical? Like, it's like very like.
Now the question from my guy was, is your shop cleaned daily? That's it, which is much more logical, with what you're saying. It's not so dogmatic that it's put this here and that there. It's just got to be clean. That's enough to satisfy it.
Yeah, well, that's funny. I wasn't going to mention it, but I will now that you said that. Part of this risk assessment, which they are going to have to do, is they want to see documentation, or some proof, that you are adequately maintaining all your machinery as per the machinery guidelines, or at least every 3 months or something, i.e., any and all dust buildup in the machine has to be cleaned out and, whatever.
That's so specific. Wow.
And so they're going to go and put their head under my table saw and have a look, and there's going to be piles of dust under there.
You would think that they would just say, well, on a grander level, if there's a fire, your premium, or, our premiums are going to go up because you're more likely of a fire. They're not going to go into such fine detail to check up on you. That just seems more work or more onerous on their part.
It seems like the fire police. It's like,
yeah,
it's fine that you want to tell everyone to be safe and be as careful as you can, but don't tell me when and how and what I should be cleaning and when, and have a schedule. And it's like that might make sense for a really big company with 5 table saws running, and someone's got to be in charge of emptying the dust bags and making sure the collection systems are not getting clogged up and stuff. It makes sense. But one-man operations, there needs to be a distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, talking about finishes, I wanted to ask you in terms of your quoting process. That's one of my talking points. When you quote a piece, how much detail do you go in on the finish cost? So do you figure out the square meterage of the piece and what that's going to convert to, or are you just saying like a 1 liter tin should do it?
Pretty much that's it, especially if it's a specific color. If it's a paint, typically most jobs you could 4 liters will cover it. And so the cost difference between 4 liters and 1 liter is not that much for most paint. So typically 4 liters of your chosen color, and I'm almost certainly never going to use that color again. Unless it's just the normal whites. There's a few whites that are popular.
Yeah, right.
But even then, I don't like the idea of charging for what you use, which, like, let's say you bought 4 liters but only used 1 out of the can, or you think you might use 1, you should charge for the whole lot, because it's the client's got to understand that they're buying something completely custom, and it's just part of the cost,
including the finish. Yeah,
you've got to buy. The only thing where it's a little different is things like clear coat, Osmo, for example. I've always got some sitting in a can somewhere, but I still allow what I think I'd use, 1 or 2 liters, and I might buy it, but I might not buy it for that job because I might have enough for my last job. Yeah. And then if I don't buy it, I just scored a couple $100. If I get halfway through and I don't have enough, then I'll go and buy the 2 liters I allowed for. Yeah. And I'll have some left over for the next job. And it's just like an ongoing kind of repeating stock, really.
Yeah, you always work on the basis of, if I was to buy finish for this, it would be a liter, so that cost is going on. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And I typically overestimate because it's better to be over than under.
The other question I had, and this is, I mentioned this to you yesterday on Instagram, documentation. So what type of documentation do you keep? So just to paint the picture, I'm trying to record all the information about, every job, what my expenses were, what my income was, so what my profit was, when I purchased this piece, when I purchased that bit of. What I'm finding is this job that I'm on, this latest job at the moment, I've gone back to it's just in my head. I don't need to write all this down. It's in my head. And yesterday I opened up my document, and I went, I got to update all of this. So now it's starting to feel like that documentation is a chore. And I remember this when I used to work in my last job, an IT company. My boss would constantly be wanting me to update my, certain bits of documentation. Oh, and it was just the worst, because I just think I'm just recording things for nothing.
Yeah.
But then every now and then it helps you later down the track. So I was just wondering, do you do any of that?
Yeah, it's so important and it's so boring, but it's so necessary. And I think it's really important to think of it as a process. Like if you hired somebody else, you have to sit them down and say, you do this, then you do this, and then you do this. That's how the job works. You wouldn't hire someone and just say, figure out a way to make this paperwork work. Mm-hmm. You'd say, I've worked out a way to do it, and this is what works for me. And then you've got to keep doing that, because it's so important. I don't know how much you want me to ramble on about this. This is like the accounting podcast, which is the boring version. But
well, you're talking about the process, getting someone, which I get. But why are you recording all that information? How does that benefit you in the future?
Okay, so I go buy some paint. Yeah, you come back, I want to start painting. But before I do that, first thing I do is bring my receipt into the office, and I transfer the cost of that product. $100 goes onto my spreadsheet of the costs of the job. Each job's got its own spreadsheet. The spreadsheet has how much money the client's paid so far, how much they're going to pay at the end, and then underneath that, I've got all the costs associated with that job. Mm-hmm. And then, so once I've transferred that $100 payment onto the spreadsheet, the receipt goes into my drawer, and then once a week, all those receipts get sorted out onto my accounting software and stuff. That's done by my wife. And
isn't the whole point of your accounting software to just snap a picture of that receipt as you do it?
I don't do that.
Okay, right, yes. So, yeah, gotcha.
Because my wife does that part of it and does like the end of year financials and stuff, and she did an accounting course and stuff, and so she knows what she's doing.
We've talked about this, yeah.
I just send the bills, pretty much.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, and then you've got this document of how much stuff cost. And what's interesting is that you can use that and then look at your quote that you wrote down somewhere. And you can say, what did I actually spend versus what I quoted? And there's some food for thought, and you can adjust your process going forward for a start. And then once that job's finished, I save that, all the documents to do with the job, all the pictures I've taken, stay with that file and just sit on Dropbox. And then if that client calls me back in 3 years and says, oh, you made this thing for me, and this has just started happening to me recently where I cannot remember who the hell these people are. I've done enough jobs now. I used to be able to remember every person, and their name would kind of ring a bell, and I would, okay, I did that thing for you. Yes, I know what you're talking about. And now it's like, I have no clue. What was your name? Sorry. Type it in. Okay, I found your file. All right. Now I know what I did for you. And I know what materials costed 3 years ago because I've got my spreadsheet. And I know what I made them. And they have an idea of what that thing costs 3 years ago.
That's a good point. So actually to be as descriptive as you can about the materials so you can see the costs, not just I bought wood.
Yeah, I would say I bought, or like if it's an oak table, I would say oak from supplier X cost this much for that table's worth. And I could look at my quote associated with that job and work out how much oak I had allowed for as well. And if I really wanted to, I could dive down into my accounting software, find the actual receipt from that job and work out how much oak I actually bought to cover that job as well. And so that's a different thing. But what it really does is say, now this client is expecting this table for this much money. They're now asking for a similar project, but I have got to explain to them why it's going to be 20% more expensive.
Yeah.
So straight away, I need to say, look, everything's gone up, this has gone up, and this thing that you want is way more complex, it's going to cost this much now.
Yeah.
So that's a really good bonus of keeping all that documentation, as well as for me, fundamentally, it's number one goal is I can track exactly how much I spent, which means I know exactly how much I made.
Yeah, and I think there's a, and this might not be for everyone, but there's a certain fascination with recording data. I think we all just like to do that, just to, even if it's just for personal benefit. So you have a record of what you've done. It may not have any immediate benefit, but it's just cool to see data that you can then transform into something, in 5 years' time. You can see your progression.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. That's interesting. I think it's important. Well, it's slightly different part of documentation. I think I've said this before, but I always write my quotes down. I used to do it manually, and now I've got this cool little like paper tablet thingabob.
Yeah.
And I've like digital. All my quotes are digital, and I just still hand write everything out, but I can like sketch, draw, and stuff on like a little, I don't know what you call it, the e-paper thing.
In Kindle, isn't it?
This one is a Boots
or Remarkable.
One.
Okay, yeah.
Something like Remarkable, yeah. There's a few out now that do the same thing. But it's really great because you've got infinite pages and you can just keep sketching and doing stuff. What's really interesting is that because I'm quite detailed when I'm writing out my quote with all the things I'm going to buy for the job, I allow some amount of money for everything I'm going to do.
Sorry, when you say quote, do you mean this isn't the client-facing quote?
No. Okay. A client just sees one number. When I'm writing out the costings for a job, because inevitably, especially if it's something like maybe a wardrobe, someone wants a wardrobe, some hanger rails, and they ask for 3 drawers underneath the hanger rails, right? And then they come back to me and say, can we delete the drawers? Or can we delete 2 drawers? They're going to want to see an adequate amount of discount on the price because they're removing something.
Yeah.
And I need to be able to show them, or at least plausibly, like honestly say, the cost of materials is this much. It's not that significant compared to the time still to make 1 drawer. Still, here's the discount you wanted. It doesn't make that big a difference to the price, but that's up to them to decide. But
yeah, I guess at that point you're saying this is what it'll be. So now the decision's up to you. You're just putting it back onto them to decide if they want to make that change. You don't.
That's right.
So they don't feel like they're getting cornered. Yeah.
But having some detailed list of materials means you can make notes on it yourself and say, revised price is now this, minus 2 drawers, clients, thinking about it, whatever. What I hear and see often is whenever, it happens more with builders, whenever the clients take something off, they never get a discount. And when they add something, it's like triple the price they think it should be. And it's really normal to see that. And I think you can win a client over by showing them differences in pricing and just explaining a bit about why it is what it is. So you had this, what was it? I don't know if you talked about this. I think you talked about it on the last podcast about this real simple job that you estimated on the phone. It was like a block of wood or something.
Yeah. And you commented about how you would never, ever do that. Yeah. Give a price. Which, yes, and I think I said in the video, I said I would never do it as well. But it in this scenario, it was very time sensitive. However, I will walk back on my on that and say this is just a different scenario that I've been put in. So I've learned that even in a time sensitive scenario, give me 5 minutes and I'll ring you back.
That's right.
Yeah.
because you've got to remember, or not remember, but you need to appreciate that the client is in a hurry. They're desperate sometimes. If they need that thing tomorrow, they just want someone to fucking just do it. Say, yes, I'm going to do it. And they pass that kind of frantic frenzy onto you.
Which it was.
And
it was a frantic phone call, yeah.
That's right. And you are kind of they force you with their insistence on, just give me a price, just give me a price. I just need to know what ballpark I'm in. And it's really important to step back and say, just look, this is your fuck up. You left this until the last minute. I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be cheap, but give me 5 minutes, give me 10 minutes. I'm going to throw some numbers down on a piece of paper and I'll call you right back and then you can decide. And if you don't do that, inevitably, whenever I've done that, I've done it on 2 kind of largish jobs where I've just given an estimate and then I've gone to price it up and gone, I dropped the ball. I'm like $2,000 short. My estimate is $2,000 short. And then you work out, shit, I underestimated by like 20%. And they're going to think I'm a hack because I don't even know what something costs.
You're a bozo. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it's like, it's not that. It's that your job is kind of complicated. And by the time I worked out all the nitty gritties of it, this is what it costs. This is what it's going to work out at. And so then you go back to the client and say, look, I underestimated on the phone. Here's the actual price. And you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
Which I guess is probably a good thing, perhaps. But it's really to take you out. You take yourself out of that situation where you're feeling the stress of the conversation and feeling that pressure just to give someone a number. I think it's so important just to say, look, just hold your horses, give me a couple minutes, and then we'll come back.
In this scenario, it was actually the other way around, where I over-quoted.
Yeah.
It was a small job, but I said to him, it won't take me more than 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I work on $60 an hour, so at $180. But so all he heard was $180, and he just immediately shut down, which I don't blame him. But in that case, I also didn't hear back from him because it was way overpriced.
It's interesting. I struggle with this a lot. Small jobs, a small object costs the same as a big object to make. And there's this perception that something that's big like a dining table, it's fine if that costs $5,000. But something small like a jewelry box can't cost $5,000. But a jewelry box probably costs $7,000 to make. You know, like a really good
You're doing it right, yeah.
That you've spent 2 weeks on. You could easily spend 2 weeks making these tiny little drawers and, whatever, veneering it and inlay and stuff. Like you could spend hours and hours on that kind of thing. And people are always so visibly disappointed when you start throwing numbers around for small work. Because, I don't know, I think it's the expectation of what stuff costs in the shops.
Yeah, but it's
same old retail thing.
Yeah, but that comes down to your clients and who you're targeting in terms of your client base. Someone just followed up with me on one of my videos a few weeks ago. A guy down in I think he's either Melbourne or Sydney. Just sent me a message and said, I've just watched your video. I've got a lot of points that I want to run by you. That I've been doing this for 10 odd years. Can I send you some videos? Sent me these 3 long videos just going off about try this, do that, get this tool. It was amazing. It was such an awesome thing to do. I want to give you some knowledge. Anyway, one of the things he went into was aim for particular markets. So try and chase markets. certain ethnic groups. Sorry, I should say certain ethnic groups, certain cultures. That's who you go for, because those are the people who look at a $7,000 jewelry box and go, that sounds about right. So it's and this is something that I'm really trying to get my head around now. I recently put up an advert on Facebook to say, I'm a woodworker here in Townsville. I'm taking on new work at the moment, et cetera, et cetera. And now when people contact me, and one person contacted me afterwards to say they were interested in getting something made, I don't know if I should be talking about this, but I jumped onto their Facebook profile to see what type of person this is.
Right.
Does this look like a person? What is any pictures? What does the background of their pictures look like? Is there beautiful furniture in the background? Because if they're not, then I'm not going to get my hopes up. If it's all IKEA stuff, I'm not going to get my hopes up. So really try and target that.
Well, you're vetting your clients.
Yeah.
It's important. And like I know builders nowadays are doing that by charging for a consultation before they even do anything about quoting or anything. It's like, first we have a meeting and it's going to cost you $150. If you don't want to do that, I don't want to do your job.
Yeah. Where you're clearly not serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's,
With talking about clients and I guess trying to match their expectations when it comes time to doing time frames, and this is more around not so much you're doing your kitchens, because I guess that's quite structured. You can pretty accurately estimate how long you're going to take for a job, but things like that table that you did for that dignitary or politician, right?
Yeah.
How do you go with estimating time, and how much leeway do you have? The reason I say, someone like Bryan, in my head, I envision him talking to a client saying, I'm going to make you that clover table. And the client says, oh, that's awesome. Probably calling them from his Porsche, in his $1 million mansion. And the client says, Bryan, you get it to me whenever it's ready. And then Bryan goes away and some days he wakes up and he goes, I'm not feeling it. And he just doesn't work on it. Right? That's what, like high-end furniture makers, that's what I see. So do you think there's an element of truth in that?
It's difficult, that question, because I think there could be by some makers, and I don't know if Bryan is one of those, there could be that you've put so much markup or margin on your price because of the perceived value for whatever reason, that you've got so much money in it that you can afford to really just take your time and wander through it. I think that happens sometimes.
But I'm talking more from the client's perspective, about them sort of chasing you up, saying, "Where's my table? Why isn't my table?" Like, do clients of high-end furniture chase the furniture maker up, or do they just wait for the furniture maker to be ready?
I've only had one occasion where the client just said, "Take as much time. I don't want to know about it. If there's an issue, call me," which I did, and I had to go backwards and forwards with them. But they were wealthy, and they were very creative people as a couple. And so they were really interested in the process of designing and coming up with solutions to problems, and they really wanted to be involved and then just go away and do it, and we don't care. And they were happy to pay, like, every time I made a new drawing, make sure you send an invoice for your time for drawing that.
Perfect customer.
And it's like, that's happened once to me. And so my experience, though, is people with a lot of money are not frivolous with it. They're very much like, this is an expensive thing, and I want to see the fruits of my money. So I expect some update or some time frame, and I kind of expect to see that everything's going to come together. They're usually very reasonable.
Yeah.
They're not. It's like most people are very reasonable when there are issues or problems or delays, but as long as they're kept in the loop. I don't think many people would be that comfortable just giving away $30,000 deposit and just saying, just get it to me. I don't think that happens that often. Because
it's something that I'm trying to figure out. We talked about this last week, where I think it was last week. As a new furniture maker, and I guess even as a seasoned furniture maker, you are still expecting that client to constantly be thinking about you and the piece of furniture that they're making all day, every day. And it's sitting on your shoulders going, I need to get this done, because that person their whole life has stopped around me making this piece of furniture. But the handful of jobs that I've done, everyone's always, take your time, you know, get onto it. And they might not necessarily mean that, but they don't want to put any pressure on me.
No. So I think that's pretty normal. Like, I think there's a reasonable time frame. People have, like, usually they expect things to take longer than they actually do. So that's good for us.
Yeah.
And so we're already kind of inside of that timeline. And I think people are generally have, like, if everything happens inside of a month and a half, people don't care. They just go on with their lives. It's when there's, like, it drags on, and they don't see photographs, and they start getting a bit like, have you actually even made anything yet? Yeah. Because there's no progress. Like, I want to see at least a piece of wood glued together or something, you know?
Yeah. And updates and photos along the way is a good thing. This silky oak dining table that I'm making, I feel like the updates are very slow, but that's because I'm gluing up 1,000 toothpicks to make a meter-wide table. So I'm afraid I don't have lots of news for you, because it's all the same shit every day. Yeah. And this is where this question has come from, is how do I convey to this client, or not even necessarily that, even in the example of that reptile enclosure that I made, where I would sit on a problem for half a day. How am I going to solve this problem? And now, to them, that problem should have been solved instantly, because I'm a qualified furniture maker with 100 years experience. So, how do you convey that message and give them that confidence? I guess the question to you is, broadly, how do you navigate that? And have you had any examples where, your clients have got stroppy because you've taken too long? And how could you have improved that?
I don't want to sound uppity, but I've never taken longer than my whatever date has been set.
Oh, right. How far in advance do you set that date?
Well, that's the thing. I always, what do they say, over-promise, or is that what, over-promise and something like that? Under-promise and over-deliver?
Yeah. Like not the other way around. Don't put that on a business card.
Like something for, like, your table with lots of pieces. I would caveat it right from the start and say, I can do this, it's going to look great. There's a lot of stuff that's got to happen, and there's going to be lots of, probably a couple of weeks of me just sitting there doing the same thing. Nothing's going to happen, and then suddenly it will be finished. So that's what you know up front, and then I'll kind of keep you posted along the way.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing I would say typically. I always give myself way more time. Sorry, I am always, like, if I know I've got 2 months to do a job, I will be finished in a month. Like, I'm always way ahead of schedule, to the point where it becomes a problem storing the finished things. But I just smash through jobs as fast as possible, because, and I was just talking to a builder about this, Like if there's a problem, I want to find that problem as fast as possible. I want to run to the problem, fix it, and carry on. I don't want to dawdle my way through a job and then there's this giant problem which nobody saw, and now because of the delay in fixing it, it's going to make the job go over time, you know?
Because in that scenario, as you say, no one could have foreseen it. Client can't be pissed at you for it because no one could have seen it.
Yep.
Maybe you've not met your timeline, but I would imagine that you do have an out in that scenario.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, personally, could absolutely have an out. Everyone's understanding. That doesn't change the fact that now all the other trades involved with, say, a kitchen have been pushed back 2 weeks. And now the move-in date for the client has been pushed back 2 weeks. And that is my biggest stress point for kitchens, is nothing can happen until the kitchen's in. And then all the other trades come in and start doing their thing on it. And if I'm not ready on the day that I say I'm going to be, everyone else is delayed, and it's just instant money out the window. And then there's, even though it might not be my fault, there's a bit of a underlying resentment that the bloody kitchen was late by a week, and now we had to delay the bench top, the plumber, the sparky, the tiler, the painter. Everyone's delayed, and now it just cost me an extra $5,000 in like shifting around timelines for all the other things, and the curtains couldn't be measured up and something else. You know, it's just like never ending. And so I am very conscious that the date I say is the date that's happening, and usually I give myself enough lead time that it works. And I typically don't have to do like crazy all-nighters and stuff like that. It doesn't really happen, but I'm very cognizant of that time frame thing. When I tell someone I'm going to be somewhere at 12 o'clock, I'm there at 11:59. You know, that's just how I am, but it brings its own set of stresses as well.
But yeah, I like that idea of just massively
overestimating,
over promise.
But I also say, look, I think I would say to a client, it will probably take this long, but I might get it done quicker if I've got some time freed up from another job. I'll give myself a little caveat that I've got something else on which is taking up my time, but I might be able to squeeze it in faster, and then it just allows for the inevitable, I'm done already. So that's all good.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I wanted to touch, I know we're just about done, but I wanted to touch on that. I was saying before about how I can't remember my clients, my older clients now. Like I've got to have that list. I've got my list of jobs. So I had one the other week, and it was similar to your give me an estimate on the phone thing, but it was via email, so it wasn't so bad. But old client, I don't even remember what the job was because I didn't have pictures of the job. It was so old that I didn't have a full system. I had some pricing for it, but that was about it. And so they wanted a dining table, and he just asked, how much do you think how much should we save for this dining table? He made a sketch. I drew it because it's one of those bloody designs where the legs go in all crazy angles and kind of make a pedestal in the middle of the table, and I've always shied away from them because like cutting those angles is nightmarish. And so I was like, I can't even give this guy an estimate. Like I need to draw it to even work out what the hell is going on underneath,
how to do it,
how to actually do it. So I did that, and I bloody spent an hour and a half drawing it. I was like, God, this is going to take forever to make this work. And I get some steel bits and make it all hold together and make it look like it's just kind of touching and whatever. Anyway, worked out it was about $6,000 for this table. And went back to him with the drawings. He goes, oh my God, this is exactly what we want. It's beautiful. But we were thinking $2,000. And I was just like, laughed. I was like, yeah, well, that's how much the raw materials cost. And he was just like, oh, we need to go and rethink our renovation or something like that.
Yeah.
So hugely underestimated the cost of what things cost, and whether or not that was based on the cost that I charged them for my first job
all those years ago,
10 years ago. Who knows even what it was? I don't even know what it was. I just know I bought some ash for it. But so yeah, that it was a blessing and a curse, because I wanted the job, but I didn't actually want to just work out how to do the legs to that table. So that was good.
Yeah. But I guess, in that case, you may have spent an hour and a half or whatever it was, but you figured it out early on that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, and I was like, man, there's a lot of labor here. It's going to be on the pricier side for a table, but okay,
because
that's what I want.
Your difference between the expectation versus reality was so massive that you could. Yeah, I wonder if he had come in and said closer to 5. What?
Yeah, then I would have said, okay, let's change the design a little so I don't have to do such crazy joinery. But that's what I didn't. I had that mental battle. Was like, should I explain how much labor is involved in making this the base to this table? And if it just had 4 standard legs, you could probably cut $2,000 at the cost of. Or should I just say, that's the thing you wanted, so that's what it's going to cost.
Yeah,
that's what I did in the end. This is what you want.
No need for more conversation than that.
Yeah,
there it is.
Do I
that's
need
what it
to?
costs.
Yeah, I mean, and so because at that point you're just compromising. Everyone's compromising on a design just to fit a budget, and it's like, well, that is important. We're maybe coming at this from the wrong perspective then.
Yeah, to a degree. If you've got a vision for it, work towards the vision. And then if it's not going to work, then go find a piggy bank or something. And
right. So save up your pennies. Yeah. So that's hard. It's a hard call, because it's one of those things where that would be fun, but it wouldn't be fun. But I'd like the challenge, and then too much.
Cool. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I can't think of anything right now. I've got my rant out of me about insurance.
When does this whole insurance thing get finalized, or is it going to just depend on whether you go ahead?
He's got to send a report back to the insurance company, and then they'll go back to me about it. So who knows?
So by the next episode, if it's just the 3 of us again, we might have an update.
I assume so.
Yeah, cool. All right, be good to find out.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll let you get back to it, and hopefully Bryan will join us again next episode. It's been a bit funny just being a 2-man show as opposed to all 3 of us.
It's much easier to not do much when there's 3 people.
Yeah. But we'll get an update on that exhibition from him at the next show again, if it's just the 3 of us. Yeah. Cool.
Cool, man.
All right. Take it easy. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.